By the time my father handed me the envelope, the champagne had already gone warm. That was the kind of wedding it was, beautiful in photographs, exhausting in person. My sister Lena stood near the center of the reception hall under hanging white lights, smiling with the endurance of someone who'd spent 12 months planning a single evening that still refused to feel right. Guests circled her constantly, phones out, glasses raised, every moment documented before it even finished happening. I'd been there less than 2 hours and already understood my role. Attend quietly, congratulate appropriately, leave without creating discomfort. I was good at that role by then. Dad approached during dessert service, not during speeches. He wasn't reckless enough for that. He waited until conversation softened into smaller clusters, until people were distracted but still observant, close enough to witness, far enough to pretend they hadn't. He placed the envelope beside my plate. For later, he said, but he didn't leave, so I opened it there. A single folded document, typed, formal, not emotional enough to be honest. It explained that due to long-standing interpersonal instability and repeated incompatibility with family values, future financial and legal matters would proceed without my involvement. Contact regarding estate issues would go through attorneys. The letter concluded with something about preserving peace moving forward. Peaced families always use peaceful language when they're trying to make exclusion sound mature. I remember hearing silverware clink somewhere behind me while I read it. The band had started another slow song, and across the room Lena was watching me, not nervously, expectantly, like she thought this was the part where I finally became who they'd always said I was: difficult, emotional, unstable. I folded the letter carefully, slipped it into my jacket pocket, then I smiled at my father and asked, "Is there coffee anywhere?" For a second he looked disappointed, not angry, almost confused. Like he'd prepared himself for resistance and didn't know where to place all that certainty now. Lena relaxed visibly from across the room. I actually saw her shoulders drop. She thought silence meant defeat. A cousin sat beside me a few minutes later and started talking too loudly about parking validation, the universal family technique for pretending nothing important just happened. I nodded through most of it, because the truth was, the letter hurt less than it should have. That part disturbed me more than the rejection itself. 6 months earlier, maybe it would broken something open inside me. Maybe I would have argued. Maybe I would begged for clarity the way I used to after holidays and birthdays and carefully managed family dinners where everyone spoke to me like I was temporarily visiting from somewhere unfortunate. But grief gets quieter after enough repetition. You stop reaching for people who keep stepping back. 3 months before the wedding, I'd already moved apartments without telling them. 2 months before that, I'd removed my father as my emergency contact after sitting in urgent care alone for 7 hours with a concussion and realizing no one in my family would actually come if called. A month later, I resigned from Halcyon Development, the family company. No announcement, no dramatic exit. Just paperwork. Most people assumed I worked there because my father owned part of it. That wasn't completely true. I'd built one division nearly from scratch over 7 years. Municipal contract analysis. Boring work to anyone outside the industry. Critical work to anyone inside it. After I resigned, I accepted an offer from another firm in Chicago. Smaller company, better leadership, less money at first, more peace. But there was one complication: the transition agreement. The software architecture my team developed under my management hadn't fully transferred yet because the licensing negotiations were still pending. Legal details, delayed signatures, tedious things nobody in my family cared enough to understand. They assumed I'd stay accessible indefinitely because family was family. At around 9:30, while guests gathered near the dance floor, I saw someone enter through the side reception doors, wearing a charcoal suit and carrying a leather portfolio. Martin Klein, senior legal administrator for Halcyon. He spotted me almost immediately. Not my father, me, that mattered. He crossed the room politely, apologizing to guests as he passed between tables. Dad noticed him halfway there and straightened in confusion. Martin reached me first. "Sorry to interrupt your evening," he said quietly. "I was told you might still be here." I stood automatically. Around us, conversation slowed without appearing to. "We received confirmation this afternoon," Martin continued. "The transfer finalized. I wanted to make sure you had the updated release documents personally." My father was beside us now. "What transfer?" he asked. Martin blinked once, professionally unaware of tension. "The Westbridge licensing release." Silence. Not dramatic silence, the dangerous kind. "The adult kind." My father looked at me. "You finalized that?" "Yes." "When?" "Yesterday." Lena had stopped dancing. I could feel her watching again. Martin, still unaware or pretending to be, opened the portfolio and handed me a folder. "Your consulting separation is fully complete now," he said. "They've already migrated the systems." He hesitated, then added carefully, "Without your authorization, the company wouldn't have retained operational access after June." Dad's face changed slowly, not rage, worse. calculation collapsing in real time because the letter in my pocket suddenly meant something different now. Not a family removing a dependent liability, a family discovering they'd dismissed someone already gone. Martin shook my hand, congratulated me on the new position in Chicago, then left as quietly as he'd arrived. Nobody moved for several seconds afterward. The band kept playing. That was the strange part. Even life's worst moments continue underneath background music. Dad finally spoke. You accepted another position? Yes. And you weren't going to tell us. I almost laughed at that, not because it was funny, because the question itself arrived years too late. Lena approached slowly, bouquet still in one hand. You already left the company, she asked. I left months ago. Why wouldn't you say something? I looked at her for a long moment, trying to decide whether she truly didn't know. Then I realized she probably didn't. Families like ours survive by distributing responsibilities so widely, nobody feels personally accountable for the damage. You all seem pretty comfortable assuming I'd stay, I said. Nobody answered. I didn't stay for the final dances. No confrontation followed me to the parking lot. No apology either. Just cold night air and distant music muffled behind hotel walls. In the car, at a red light 3 blocks away, I took the letter back out and read it once more under the dashboard glow. The wording hadn't changed. Neither had the hurt, exactly. But its power had. That was different. I folded it again and slipped it back into my pocket before the light turned green.